So just like everything else at the end of 2020, patch 3.12 looks to be quite something. In fact, it has a lot of hidden features and things that I'm not going to go into in this video, but are very exciting. But the one thing it does include is a new heads-up display change to our ships. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today. And more importantly, what I think about it, because I am a graphic designer after all.
The UI that you see on a movie like Iron Man or Avengers or whatever, that's designed to work for maybe 2 seconds on screen and to tie into the backstory. But when we're trying to translate that across, trying to hit that feeling, it is quite difficult because for the HUD, for example, there's something like 40 or 50 different pieces of information you've got to show. Functionality is our main thing, so we have to try and look at those movie ones and try to extract those elements but still apply them to the game UI.
Now, what our friendly developer friend just said is exactly right. In media, in film, the way that UI is designed is completely different to the way it's designed for real life. Because, let's face it doesn't actually have to get used. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Spectrum or the RSI website, but it recently went through a UI change too, and mostly because it was horrible to use. The game, as we know it today, doesn't suffer too much from horrible UI syndrome. It does just suffer from bugs. Now, this new UI, sneakily displayed to us in the form of the Gladius, which is their Squadron 42 hero ship, definitely looks interesting. First of all, I'm going to show you the inside of the canopies that we have today, the Gladius more specifically, and just talk about that briefly and what I like about it. But before all of that, let's quickly just tell you why you should listen to me. Some of you might know me from my Twitch streams. Some of you might know me from my previous video talking about the 3.11 UI changes to the general game interface. My name is Will, and I've been studying graphic design for as long as I can remember, both in middle education, further education, and, university. I have both degrees in graphic design, game art and design, and then some. So yeah, I would say that I'm qualified to speak on the subject matter. And frankly, it's not that I think that the Star Citizen developers are doing a bad job. It's that I'm starting to notice a pattern of form over function. Something that annoyingly gets in the way of actual gameplay. Now, one of the first things you'll probably notice about the current UI is that it has an awful lot of stuff on the screen. There's hexagons, triangles, squares, circles, words, text, multifunction displays. They're everywhere. It's all up in front of you and mostly focused around the center of the screen in a vertical layout pattern. This is quite interesting because it's actually replicated the same as it is in real life. The current F-35, as far as I know, don't quote me on it, I don't fly one personally, has a heads-up display very similar to what we are experiencing in Star Citizen. Now, obviously that's because the F-35 was designed first, and probably the developers took knowledge of whatever they had about actual experience with heads-up displays and put that into the game. Don't forget, we do have a vehicle experience team now working on Star Citizen that is supposed to have actual experience and knowledge of these sort of things, and that could have influenced the design that we're seeing currently. Now, up on screen, you're going to see a picture of what I assume to be the inside of a current modern fighter jet. Now, don't quote me on this again because I do not know, but you can clearly see that it is very similar to what we have, and it's like that most probably so that the pilot, with his 3D projection and 360 degrees of view, can actually see everything he needs to at an instant. All right, those red triangles could be enemies, they could be points of interest, it could be extremely important. Whatever it is, the pilot needs to know where it is at all times, and thanks to the technology used in fighter jets, that information is displayed to them on their actual visor in their helmet, not on a screen in front of them. Now, that's very similar to how the game Star Citizen does things, but in real life, it's done for similar reasons, so that people can look around and get information rather than it being fixed and having to focus their actual attention entirely, with their ship included, to that direction and that trajectory. These projected imageries make it a lot more efficient for characters to have a look around. In a video game, it's a bit more complex because you are still looking at a 2D display, and some parts of that just won't move. The chat, for example, is always going to be stuck on the top left-hand side of your screen. Your health bar is always going to be stuck on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. All those features, they never move, and they do not adapt with the way that you are playing, and they do not change depending on which direction you're looking at. However, the heads-up displays in our ships, they do stay fixed to the points of interest, as well as fixed to the ship. So your heads-up speed display and your trajectory and your velocity is all fixed in the middle of your screen, so you can look left and right without being distracted by things you don't need to see except for your points of interest. Alright, what I'm showing you on video right now is a very slow motion image of the GLaDOS MFD. Now this is of your self status, your shields, your health, all the sort of stuff you might need at a glance. And the rest of it, as we zoom out, is again more MFDs with our central HUD right up there in the middle. Now I believe the reason for all these MFDs is to limit the clutter that is 3D and projected in front of us. Because as you can see here, the only things we need to see are our velocity, our thrust, any immediate warnings like missiles, and our altitude, as well as our sort of altitude angle trajectory. This is in line with what we saw on the F-35 image, but it isn't exactly the same anymore, or it doesn't look like it's going to be in 3.12. This is what we were shown last week on Inside Star Citizen, a beautifully demonstrated and gorgeous, flashy UI with animations galore, colors up the wazoo. This was one of their prior and more previous concepts into the interior of our cockpits, and as you can see, they haven't stuck with it. The animations might still be there, and I know that this is a UI that they are thinking about, but it's a lot. There's a lot of things on screen, and as the developers say, this is where they started. Also know that they intend to make a lot of ship manufacturers more unique by having individual HUD designs, but this image right here is the one I wanted to talk about, and it's the one that drove me to actually make this video because I have quite a few complaints about it. Really, it all starts with the layout. It's all just wrong. It's too much. It's style over substance, and it's just too much information, too distracting, and, well, not to mention, too hard to read. Luckily for me, they did also include a video demonstration of the new heads-up display, and this is perfect for me to explain the problems with it. First of all, let's start with the actual design. So from the looks of it, they've gone to a narrower, thinner design with narrower, thinner text and narrower, thinner graphs. All of this to be more clean and modern, probably, but it's not usable. I mean, just look at this right here. I've zoomed in almost 150%, and I still struggle to read most of it. I can't even read the altitude meter. Now, this might have something to do with the resolution. Granted, it's not very high on these videos, but this is still very hard to read. It's not very informative, and it's not very alerting straight away either. Look at those red sections on the thrusters and the limiters and the speed. Barely visible compared to the standard zones. And also, look at the random dots dotted around the corners. They're everywhere. What are these dots for? Don't know. Seems to me like just a design style purpose of just making it look more 3D. Strange. Don't quite get it. And what I also don't quite get is why these assets are layered. I mean, just look at this. Watch this video. See how when the character's head moves, the information actually gets hidden behind other panels on the heads-up display. Why? That is so useless, and not to mention dangerous for a pilot in real life. It baffles me that that would be put into the game. It just doesn't make sense. Genuinely, there's a risk here that you could be flying and relying on some partial information or some immediate information right in front of you, but you can't see it because you've decided to tilt your head a small bit, either due to G-forces or just to have a look around at your environment, and you might miss something. You might actually miss very crucial and important information. You look at the heads-up displays that we have now, it's very small, compact, and in the middle of your screen. Compare that to the 3.12 variant, it's very wide and stretched across your entire screen. I think it's just too big. Not as head as I thought I'd say, but yeah, I think this is blocking and obscuring the gamer's, player's, real person's view way too much. I have an ultra-wide monitor, and on my ultra-wide monitor, the game barely works as is. But with this addition to the game, this extra wider HUD, I see even more complications that I can't get past, like it blocking almost 80% of my view. Here's a perfect example. Look at that. It is a significant chunk of my screen blocked by graphic user interfaces. It's too much. The new UI really is a bit of a mystery to me. I'm not sure where this actual technical definition of a usable user interface is coming from. Definitely from a design point, it looks fantastic, but I can't really see it being used or getting past QA without some issues. I mean, heck, the Prowler got past QA and its UI is bright red, just like the Vandal ships. How am I supposed to know what I can and can't jump to if everything on the HUD is red? It doesn't make sense. Alright, well that's my very quick and thrown at you approach of discussing the new 3.12 changes and what I think of them. Hopefully this incites some sort of conversation between you and me in the comments down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. If you could, just smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. That would be fantastic. Of course, if you didn't like the video, there is a dislike button. Don't worry though, I won't make it very hard for you to hit. Just make sure you also tell me why. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Feel free to come check me out live on Twitch. I should actually be live on Twitch right now. I know, crazy. See you there. Peace.